Well, I don't match. But we can just ignore that I don't match. This wasn't an intentional thing. This is just what I'm wearing this morning. Okay. If we're going to take a look at today's games, there's only 4 of them, so I can go a little bit more in depth. Here's the Ottawa Senators. The Ottawa Senators make a move. They're picking up Matt Duchene. Everything's going to be wonderful. And it hasn't worked. They won their first 2, ironically, against Colorado. And now they've lost 6 in a row. This is their first of a 7-game road trip. This road trip, if they struggle on this road trip, could mean no playoffs for Ottawa. If they come out of this road trip 2-5, they're pretty much done. Because here's the thing. Montreal's got hope. It's not a lot of hope, but it's there. Carey Price has won his 2 since he came back. After tonight, they play on the road for a game. And then they got 5 more at home. So Montreal's got 5 more at home after this one. They only have 1 road game. And meanwhile, these guys are on the road for 7. That is a schedule that highly favors Montreal, who's 2 games below 500, as opposed to Ottawa, who are at 500, but they've only won 8 games. Montreal's won 10. So tiebreakers do not go Ottawa's way in almost any case right now. Because regulation overtime wins are your number 1 tiebreaker, I think. Yeah, I mean, if teams are tied in points, it's regulation overtime wins. Price against Condon is a mismatch. And Condon played well last year, and it was an inspirational story of Condon and Anderson and what they put together to help Ottawa get to the playoffs and get to that Final Four. But that was last spring. And it can be tough when you watch your team go on a long run to watch them fall back, as is the case with Ottawa. Montreal, on the other hand, won the division last year, and they've fallen back. But in the case of these 2 teams, they appear to be headed in opposite directions. 3-6-1 in their last 10, 4-4-2 in their last 10. Won their last 2, lost their last 6. If Ottawa's going to reverse course, this is the road trip to do it, and they have to start tonight. Now, Anaheim and St. Louis is an interesting one in that this is the 3rd of a 6-game road trip for Anaheim. And they're against a team that is not going to spare their feelings in St. Louis. 4-4-2 in their last 10. Gibson's the likely starter. Allen's the starter for St. Louis. St. Louis is 7-3. They won their last game. They have 1 more at home after tonight, and then they have 2 on the road. And as I said, this is 3rd out of 6 on the road for Anaheim. There's no mercy given in the schedule to a team that's going through a lot of injury problems, and Anaheim has a ton of them. The Ducks, honestly, while I picked them to make the Stanley Cup final at the start of the year, that was based on healthy players, I still think with everybody in the lineup, Anaheim is an intimidating team, but they are putting themselves into a position where it will be very, very hard to claw their way back. The rest of this road trip, much like in Ottawa's case, could decide whether they're in the playoffs in April, because it is very rare that a team at the end of November, early December, that's struggling and out of the playoffs suddenly comes back. It does happen. I'm not saying it doesn't and it can't, but it's not a very common occurrence. Now, Tampa. The Tampa Bay Lightning. This is the last of their road trip, and then they have 4 at home. And for Boston, they have a 2-game road trip on the way. Boston's 5-4-1 in their last 10. Tampa's 7-3. Tampa won their last game. Boston lost their last game. Vasilevsky's the likely starter for Tampa. Rask is starting for Boston. And I really hope Rask gets it together. If Boston's going to start to turn things around, they have to win this game. If it's not Vasilevsky that starts, if Budaj gets into this game, because Vasi played last night, that might be an opening for Boston. Budaj is not playing as well this year as he did last year for the Kings. Much like Condon, inspirational story last year. Every season is different. Boston is a team that's looking to prove themselves as being more than an also ran. And I see Boston and Vancouver in kind of the same light. I think Boston has the horses on the blue line, the young defensemen that can run that blue line in McAvoy and Carlo. I don't think the Canucks have that. I think that Boston has some of the pieces up front that they're going to need. I don't know that they have the core guys. Vancouver, same position. And Boston has two goaltenders, and I don't know that I have faith in either of them over a long period. So, both of my favorite teams are in very similar spots. The difference being, Boston's core is still pretty darn good when they're healthy. Krejci's been off for a long time. Bergeron's been very good, but we're getting to the point in his career where his totals are going to start to slip. They haven't yet, but they're going to. Boston has, well, tonight's a big test. We'll put it that way. If they can somehow eke out a win over Tampa, I don't care how they do it. If they can somehow eke out a win over Tampa, despite injury issues and despite everything else Boston's got going on, that could help them with their 2-game road trip they got coming up. But I'm not betting on it. So that's my opinion on the Tampa-Boston game. In terms of Colorado and the Thrashers, I mean the Jets. So the Jets is probably Hellebuck. It hasn't been confirmed yet, and it's Varlamov for Colorado. Winnipeg 7-3-0 in their last 10. Colorado's 4-4-2. The only reason I have a Thrashers logo up here is because in this sticker set that I got, the Winnipeg Jets hadn't moved yet. So I'm not going to destroy an Atlanta logo, but I mean, I've got to display it somehow. So I'll just slap Winnipeg over top, because that's what happened. And we can discuss how this is their 1-game road trip, and now they have their next 2 games at home. Their schedule is a strange one. Winnipeg has a very strange schedule throughout December as well. And this is important to them. These are the games you got to win. This is a divisional game. Colorado's last in the division. And if Winnipeg can win this game, Colorado's, well, their road forward really isn't a good one. I mean, let's take a look at this. You've got Minnesota, who's definitely a team they can catch. They're only 1 point behind Minnesota with 2 games in hand. They're 3 back of Chicago, 3 back of Dallas with 2 games in hand on both. But then you get into the tough stuff. They're 9 points behind Nashville and Winnipeg, and they are 11 points behind St. Louis. So the top 3 spots are out of reach for Colorado. Winnipeg's one of those top 3 teams. If Colorado can win this game tonight, they can make an argument that they're better than Minnesota and Chicago, and maybe Dallas, but they're still behind them. They still have that 1 game in hand. You got to win your games in hand. Games in hand don't mean anything if you're going to lose them. And for Colorado, this is one of those games. You can make a statement. Or Winnipeg just takes another step, and with a win tonight, they'd be 1 point behind St. Louis for the lead in the league. And I did say that I thought Winnipeg was a dangerous team before the season started, and I had people telling me I had a crush on Winnipeg, and they didn't understand why I was always talking up Winnipeg. And now I'm being accused the other way around. I think Winnipeg's playing a little bit over their heads, but they have a fantastic core up front. They have a solid, if unspectacular, blue line, and as long as Hellebuck can hold down the fort, Winnipeg absolutely can make a little bit of a run here. I would be concerned if they had to go to Comrie. If Hellebuck went down, or if there was a goaltending switch for any reason and they went with Comrie, I'd be very concerned. I'd be very surprised if, until Mason comes back, Hellebuck doesn't just start every game. I think that's where they're going to end up going with that. And whether or not that benefits Hellebuck, we'll see. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, who you've got. I was asked for predictions videos. I won't do a prediction video, but I will say this. If I had to call these games tonight, this is how I call them. I think because Ottawa's lost 6 in a row, I would take Ottawa in this game. I would take Tampa over Boston. I would take St. Louis over Anaheim because I just can't find a reason to cheer. I can't find a reason to believe right now that Anaheim can beat a loaded St. Louis team. And I would take Colorado over Winnipeg because I do think Colorado is better than people give them credit for. And I think that division is going to be a very tight division. I don't think there's going to be this huge, drawn out difference between being a playoff team and then being a bottom feeder in this division. I think there's going to be at least one good team that misses the playoffs in both the Metro and the Central. And in the Central, it could be more than one. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. And thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.